train? Was it a bicycle? What is wrong with my brain? Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still alive, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. But let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know what create is something new. So go Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McCrilly and Jamie Lane in the Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. Stop the clock, we're done, we're rolling. Sound the horn and sing that we are going. 27 hours, that is the time. So let's hop on the bus and let it shine, 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 shine. Say sha la 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 la, 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 sha la 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 la. Good evening, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks, Sunday evening, live here on YouTube, 7 p.m. Remember your clocks, folks. 7 p.m. tonight. News on the Tube, every Saturday and Sunday, 7 p.m. You will find the Bandido here live on YouTube. We had a really good show last night. Very happy with the show. We got through 3 really good stories. Nice variety in our media. It's always nice whenever Google Chrome can give me a little bit of variety to play with. Anyway, good show last night. There are fireworks going off all around me here. People are getting in the mood for Halloween. I'm sure there are a whole bunch of people out doing their trick-or-treating, knocking on doors. You may hear the doorbell ring. You may hear the fireworks in the background. But that's not going to stop us here on Bandido Talks. Fireworks, door knocking, bell ringing, trick-or-treating, it does not matter. We are going to be here 7 p.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and in particular, Saturday and Sunday, News on the Tube. We should have a really good show tonight, folks. We're going to go down through, in typical News on the Tube fashion, we're going to go down through a whole bunch of standard media articles. And when I say a whole bunch, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. A whole bunch. We'll maybe get down through 2 or 3 good news articles. And let's see if we can find some lessons within these news articles. That's what we do here on this particular segment, News on the Tube. We go into standard media articles. We try to get in underneath the surface of the headline. of the general, perhaps, message that the media wants you to believe from the article, and we see if we can extract the lessons from these articles and apply them to our own existence. Before we get into tonight's show, folks, I want to say that if you find our News on the Tube segment interesting, you like what we do, feel free to like the video, like the live stream. If you're joining us live, get active in the chat. If you're watching this particular live stream after it has been posted, of course you can get down into the comments section. Let the old Bandido know what you think of his take on all of these different media stories that we're going to go through tonight on tonight's show. And of course, if you find what we do here at Bandido Talks valuable, interesting, in some way, then of course you can subscribe to the channel. I don't know if there's anybody in the live chat yet. Let me see, let me check. Every time I do one of these shows, I always get, you see, the engine gets up and running. So I ignite the engine. Once the engine gets up and running, sometimes, I will confess, I do forget to go into the live chat. And there could be people waiting in the live chat, and I do forget to actually go in there and check. So let me have a look here on the live chat, just before we get started, and see if there are any comments. Let me see, we've got quizzed, go on the Bandido of Vamonos. Oh, we've got a little bit of Spanish here from quizzed. I wonder who quizzed is. Who could be this YouTube channel who's commenting in the live stream tonight? Well, if you've got the same idea as quizzed, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyway, if you've got the same idea, get into the live chat. Let me know what you think of the show. Get into the comments section once it's posted. Give me all of your feedback. Feedback is welcome. And with all of that out of the way, I will periodically check the chat, just to make sure that I'm not missing any comments from our live viewers. Anyway, we're going to get straight into tonight's show. What are we going to do? I'm going to go to my mobile phone, and we're going to see what is going to greet me and greet you as our viewing public. Into Google. Let's see what our first story is going to be tonight. Last night was a good show, as I said. Let's see what we are going to be greeted with. Okay. So first story is from The Guardian. And The Guardian says the following. Now, is it going to make me subscribe to the article? Sometimes this happens. Whenever I go into these articles, I think I can get into the article, and then it says I have to subscribe and pay something to see their media. Well, let me tell you something, folks. If I have to pay in order to read these stories, that ain't going to happen. We're going to go on to a new story. So let's see if I can actually read this story. I think I can. Okay. So here's what it says. Gavin Newsom confirms he is considering 2028 presidential run. Democratic California governor and high-profile Trump critic plans to make decision after 2026 midterms. Let's just read a couple of paragraphs here so that we get a gist for the article. Gavin Newsom, California's Democratic governor, told CBS News Sunday morning he plans to make a decision on whether to run for president in 2028 once the 2026 midterm elections are over. He says the following, in quotes, "Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise," Newsom said in response to a question on whether he would give serious thought to a White House bid after the 2026 elections. Quote, "I'd just be lying, and I'm not. I can't do that." Okay. Don't think we need to read any more of this article. It's probably going to get into more of the interview that Gavin Newsom had with CBS Sunday Morning News. What can we learn? Of course, we're looking for the lessons in here, folks, okay? So the story is Gavin Newsom. For those of you who do not know who Gavin Newsom is, it's actually already said it in the article. He is the Democratic California governor. So what a mouthful that is. The Democratic California governor. And he's, by the way, the article reminds us, he is a high-profile Trump critic. And he plans to make his decision as to whether he's going to run for presidency in 2028 after the 2026 midterm elections in the United States of America. Now, I think this is interesting what he then goes on to say. He says, "Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise, Newsom said in response to a question on whether he would give serious thought to a White House bid after the 2026 elections. I'd just be lying. And I'm not. I can't do that. Well, let's have a look at this now. We're back into politics again. Into American politics. Now, if somebody is watching this and they are from America, or even if they are from Northern Ireland, they may ask a very valid question. What does the Bandido know about American politics? Well, I don't know a lot. I don't know the nitty-gritties, the nitty-gritty details of everything. I can't proclaim to be an expert in American politics. But I do not need to be an expert in American politics because we're going to try and see what lesson we can get out of the article. So Gavin Newsom, before I would even get into his whole interview that he has done with CBS Sunday Morning, he's trying to make it very clear that he's just the type of guy who would not lie to you. Do you know that? Like, let's read this again. Because he mentions the word lie or lying. How many times? Twice. And he tries to make a very strong case that he would never do that. So he says, yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying. And I'm not. I can't do that. Now, people have a whole host of opinions when it comes to politicians. Generally, I would make the argument, and maybe there are some outliers. Perhaps there are. But I would make the case that the vast majority of people do not generally associate politicians with the absolute truth. Now, do politicians always tell lies? No. There is, of course, going to be some truth in among what it is that they're saying. But I would make the argument that a lot of people, if you were to survey a lot of people, and you were to try and get people to associate certain words with politicians, certain words that might come up in this hypothetical survey may be deception, manipulation, lying. These are some of the words that if you're on the ground as a regular citizen and you just talk to people, people generally, and I'm talking as a big generalization here, I'm sure there are some people who think that certain politicians are very useful. Maybe in the local area you have politicians who do very useful things for the local community. That may be true. But in general, the general sentiment among people is trust isn't always at the level at which certain people would like it to be. So Gavin Newsom, we can see in the first few sentences of this particular article, is trying to make it very clear that he would not lie. It's just not something that's in his DNA. Okay, now, do I know Gavin Newsom? No, I don't. Do I know really? I don't obviously know him personally. Maybe he's seen the Bandido. Maybe he is a secret subscriber to Bandido Talks. Because whenever I go on to the subscribers, of course, certain people only make their subscriptions public. So as far as I'm concerned, we have a whopping 11 subscribers here on Bandido Talks. A whopping 11 subscribers. And according to my very detailed analytics in YouTube Studio, around 6 of those subscribed individuals haven't made their subscriptions public. So maybe Gavin Newsom is a private subscriber. He's a hidden subscriber. Maybe he knows the Bandido. I don't know. But the point here would be, Gavin Newsom, I don't know anything about him. Maybe he is an excellent politician. Maybe he's a very honest fellow. I don't know. But I think an interesting thing from this article, there would be 2 interesting things that I would highlight. The article wants to make it very clear, because it says it actually right underneath the title in the subheading, that not only is he the Democratic California governor, but he is also a high-profile Trump critic. So the article felt it necessary to put that in. Now, I mean, look, if I was writing an article, what I would probably have done was just stopped short of the high-profile Trump critic. I would have explained who he was. He's the Democratic California governor. But the article felt it necessary to put Donald Trump's name into the title. Now, for any of you who watched last week's show, I can't remember exactly what episode. It might have been episode 3, News on the Tube, last Saturday. And we had another article about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and about how Trump thought that Putin was playing him. Now, we talked about in that episode that these media outlets, there is a very strong possibility, I would suggest, that these media outlets know that by just putting Donald Trump's name in the title, that is going to ignite a whole bunch of very passionate responses among people. Some people love Donald Trump, some people loathe Donald Trump. There isn't really a middle ground with Donald Trump. If you were again to carry out a hypothetical survey and you were to say, okay, ask all of these people, what do you think of Donald Trump? I would argue that you're going to get the extremes. In other words, you're going to get extreme answers, either side of the spectrum. You're not going to find anything really in the middle. Most people are going to say, I hate him with a passion. I do not like him. He is this, he is that. Or you're going to get other people who say, I love him. He's the best thing that has ever entered the White House, and he's the greatest president that has ever took charge of America. Okay, you're not going to get too many people who kind of go, oh yeah, Donald Trump, yeah. Oh, he's all right, yeah, not too bad. No, what's going to happen is people are going to say, I hate him or I love him. He's a really polarizing figure. The answers are going to be at either side, either extreme of the spectrum of potential answers. So, first thing first to pick up from this article. Was it really necessary for The Guardian to put in he's a high-profile Trump hater? What were the exact words? I don't want to misquote The Guardian. Let me see. A high-profile Trump critic. So was it really necessary to put that in? Because the subheading could have read as follows. Democratic California governor plans to make decision after 2026 midterms. Instead, what it says is this. Democratic California governor and high-profile Trump critic plans to make decision after 2026 midterms. So the article has managed to get Donald Trump's name into the subheading. I would argue that this is perhaps an important strategy in the article, generating a general emotional response among the people who may be reading. We haven't even got into the article yet, but by just mentioning a high-profile Trump critic, you're already going to get people who are reading this article either going all in on Gavin Newsom, i.e. they're going to be saying, oh yes, I hate Trump and he's a high-profile Trump critic, so you know what, I don't need to even know anything more about Gavin Newsom. He's my man. And then you'll get the other side, which will say, Gavin Newsom, well, he's a high-profile Trump critic. Well, I don't want to, what else has he said in this article? He's a this and he's a that. You'll get a big emotional outburst at either end of this spectrum by just putting Trump's name in the title. That's the first thing. So we could say this is good writing. Give credit where credit is due. This is clever by putting in the high-profile sort of Trump, again, let's make sure we're saying it right, Trump critic, high-profile Trump critic. By just putting that in the subtitle, we've already got, I would argue, a large number of people who will already be emotionally invested in the article one way or the other. What else would I say here? The other thing that I would say here is, again, drawing attention to the fact that Gavin Newsom, now I haven't watched his whole interview on CBS News Sunday morning, so I haven't watched it. But all I know is that The Guardian, who is writing this article, is trying to make it very clear that Gavin Newsom is not a liar. Let me read out what the Guardian article actually says in its second paragraph. It says, quote, "Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise," Newsom said in response to a question on whether he would give serious thought to a White House bid after the 2026 elections. Quote, "I'd just be lying, and I'm not. I can't do that." Now, what would I say here? This is the second thing that I would say on this particular story. So, I want you to imagine that you're walking down the street. And on the side of the street, there is a gentleman with a little stall selling, oh, I don't know, crepes. Let's say he's selling sweet crepes. So see it, not sort of dessert-like crepes. So crepes with chocolate drizzled on them, crepes with some sort of a fancy sweet filling, crepes. He's a crepe guy. So he makes the crepe there and then, and he puts all of these various sweet fillings into the crepe, and you can purchase the crepe and enjoy the crepe. Now I want you to imagine you're walking along the street, and this guy who has prepared a whole bunch of crepes, so let's say he has prepared a number of crepes in advance, and he's got all of these lovely sweet fillings in the crepes. Now if this guy leaps out from behind his little stall and jumps in front of you on the street and says, "Do you want a crepe? Do you want a crepe? I've got some crepes. Would you like a crepe? I'll give you a crepe. Half price for a crepe. My crepes are really good. Are you sure you don't want a crepe? I make crepes. I make crepes." If somebody started to go on like that, if somebody really tried to convince you that their crepes are really good, my crepes are really good, I make crepes all the time, I've been making crepes since I was 3 years of age, and have you ever seen the way I can flip a crepe, and the way I make the crepe is unique to the way all the other people make crepes. If somebody started to try to really give you the hard sell that their crepes are just the greatest crepes that exist on this high street, you would be a little suspicious. You'd be kind of wondering, why is he selling me the idea that his crepes are really good? Can I not, as a free sovereign individual, take a look at his stall, smell his crepes, look at his crepes, look at the fillings that he puts into his crepes, and if I'm interested, I can initiate the dialogue and ask a few questions about his crepes if I'm really interested in how he makes his crepes. But if someone tries to really convince you that they are something, or that something they do is really good, and they really try to reinforce the point, it comes across, one could say, as a little suspicious. Now, maybe we could be reading too much into this. This is just a theory. It may be a case that I'm reading the article, and maybe other people have read the article, and they're thinking, maybe we're overthinking this. Perhaps we're just overthinking. Maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. The point is, from going down through this article, just the title, the subheading, a couple of paragraphs, we can just see a few things that are interesting. And then, whether they are right or not is not necessarily the most important thing. The most important thing is we're able to look at this and sort of start to generate some theories as to why the article has actually written what it has written. So let's summarize our 2 points. Number one, we could make the argument that it was perhaps unnecessary, really, to put Trump's name in the title and to sort of put it in the, sorry, not the title, but the subheading, to put Trump's name in the subheading in the way that it was placed. It was placed there to make it very clear that Gavin Newsom is a Trump critic. In fact, he's not just a Trump critic, he's a high-profile Trump critic. So that's the first thing. We have to ask ourselves, do those 4 words, high-profile Trump critic, really need to be in the subheading? If we're just talking about the Democratic California governor and about his aspirations to run potentially for office in 2028? So that's the first thing. Perhaps we could look at that and say, well, that's interesting that the article has put that in, because again, by putting a very polarizing figure like Donald Trump, by just putting his name in the title, the article, we could argue, already knows that a whole bunch of people are going to be very invested emotionally in that article, depending on what side or what extreme side of the spectrum they are coming at, or the extreme side of the spectrum where they reside. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, we get into the second paragraph, and the article, as soon as the second paragraph, is trying to really sell us this idea that Gavin Newsom would never lie. Really, you read the article, I've read it out a couple of times, okay, so you can make up your own mind. Maybe I'm reading into it too much and overthinking it. But the article is certainly trying to very much hammer home the point that Gavin Newsom, this guy who's going to potentially run for presidential office in 2028, this guy would not lie. It's just not in him. So, those would be the two main things we take away from that article. That's what I think. Those are the two main things that I would take away from just the heading, the subheading, and the first couple of paragraphs. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know in the chat if you think we're overthinking things. But anyway, that's Gavin Newsom, the Democratic California governor, potentially running for office in 2028. Okay, next story. Let's see what we have next. So out of that one, our second story, what do we have? Now, we have the following. Sky News. I don't think this one will be a paid one. I have to get rid of these cookies. Okay, essential cookies only. Sometimes whenever I go into these articles, a whole bunch of stuff comes up about cookies, about privacy, and sometimes it takes a while for me to actually get rid of these things from the article. So, this is Sky News, and this was released today, Sunday the 26th of October, 2025, 1 minute past 4, I shall have you know. Let's see what this one says. Mansion tax not part of coherent strategy, former Bank of England Governor Mervyn King says. Lord King tells Sunday Morning with Trevor Phillips that ministers are guilty of writing up plans, quote, on the back of a fag packet. So let's read the first couple of paragraphs. A former Bank of England governor has criticised potential proposals for a mansion tax, saying the government lacks a, quote, coherent strategy on the economy. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is reportedly considering a mansion tax in next month's budget to help fill the multi-billion-pound black hole in the public finances. Okay, again, the article is long and winding, but I think that's enough. So here we have former Bank of England Governor Mervyn King. So he thinks, essentially, that ministers are guilty of writing up plans, quote, on the back of a fag packet, and that essentially this idea of implementing a mansion tax lacks a coherent strategy on the economy. And that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, she's reportedly considering this mansion tax in next month's budget to help fill the multi-billion-pound black hole in public finances. Okay. I think this one's going to be quick, folks, because the clue is in the title. Mansion tax. Mansion tax. Who here watching among us is going to be affected by mansion tax? Well, all I can tell you is, from my perspective, mansion tax is not going to affect me. The Bandido is not going to be affected by mansion tax, because I'm assuming a prerequisite for being affected by mansion tax is going to be you need to live in a mansion. So, for those of us reading this article, we've got a whole bunch of people, very wealthy people. So let's imagine for a second. Former Bank of England Governor Mervyn King. Now I would argue that a former Bank of England governor probably has a few pound. He probably has a few pound. And he's not particularly happy about mansion tax. Fair enough. Mervyn's not happy. And he thinks the whole thing resembles a plan that's been written up on the back of a fag packet. So Mervyn's not happy. And Rachel Reeves has this big multi-billion-pound black hole in public finances that needs to be filled. And she's going to implement, potentially, a mansion tax. What is the lesson here, folks? And I think this one's quick. This is pretty straightforward. If you are in a position where mansion tax is going to affect you, this isn't the case for Mr. Bandido. If you are in the chat or you are watching this live stream after it has been posted, Let me know in the comments if mansion tax is going to affect you. And let's say we have some viewers, because remember, Gavin Newsom might actually be a viewer of Bandido Talks, because remember, not all of the subscriptions are public. So Gavin Newsom, he is of course the governor of California. We seem to be covering a lot of governors tonight. This is the former governor of the Bank of England, and we've got the current governor of California. So maybe Gavin Newsom, he probably has a few dollars in his pocket too. So Gavin Newsom, Mervyn, they will be affected by mansion tax if it comes in, I would argue, because they probably have enough finances to be in a position where they can afford a mansion. So let's imagine. Let's imagine we've got some very wealthy people listening to Bandido Talks. For whatever reason, maybe they find a lot of value in the channel. For all of my wealthy subscribers, you're very welcome to Bandido Talks. Okay, so let's say we have some wealthy subscribers to this channel, or wealthy viewers who may be watching the show. And they're thinking, well, hold on a second now, Mr. Bandido, this will affect me. So what's the lesson in this article for me? I have a mansion. I'm going to get the back end taxed off me because I have a mansion. And I've worked for this mansion. I've put in a lot of diligent effort and time across my life to build my financial portfolio, and now I'm going to get taxed. Okay. So, for our wealthy viewers who are going to be affected by mansion tax, there are these things called airplanes. We always see them in the sky. Airplanes. And what you're able to do in 2025 is buy a ticket with your extraordinary wealth. You might be able to buy a plane ticket. You can buy a plane ticket, okay? And what you can do is sit your rear on a plane and go somewhere else where they do not charge mansion tax. Because if you are in a position where you are in the category of getting taxed for your mansion, then I would argue that you have the finances to go somewhere else in the world where they are not charging a tax on mansions. So for the wealthy viewers, it's really simple, this one. You go online, you buy a plane ticket, you go to the airport, you board the plane, and you go somewhere else where they do not charge mansion tax. For those of us who do not have a mansion, the story isn't particularly applicable to us. Now, maybe somebody might say, oh, but what about the part of the story where there's this multi-billion-dollar black hole? Well, again, folks, a multi-billion-dollar black hole. What does that mean? Why did this happen? I don't know why this happened. I don't know why there's a multi-billion-dollar black hole. That's a good question. And to be quite honest with you, I really don't care, because there's nothing that I can do to fix the multi-billion-dollar black hole. If there was something I could do, then I would be more concerned about it. If there was actually something actionable that I could do to fix this. But the reality is, I cannot fix it. It would be like me worrying about the weather. I cannot control the weather. This multi-billion-dollar black hole was not my fault. This has been created by someone else. And I don't know how it was created. I do not have the solution to it. And even if I did have the solution to it, nobody is going to listen to me. So really, when we hear of a multi-billion-dollar black hole, what we want to think of, folks, is, really, can we do anything about it? What can we do to ensure that we safeguard our own finances as best as possible? We just need to think. How can we ensure that our own money is as safe as possible, and essentially that we aren't getting our money spent in a certain way that we may not agree with? So we have to find ways. It may involve whatever. There might be certain strategies. You need to do your own homework. If it's an issue that means something to you and you're not happy with the fact that there's a multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar black hole, and you may be thinking, well, where has all this money went to? It's been wasted. Who's wasting my money? The truth is, we're never really going to know why this black hole, how it came to be. And all you can really do is look after number one. Have a look at your own finances, make sure that you can live within your means, try not to get into debt, and then you're probably on a fairly good path to a happy financial existence. You're living within your means, whatever your means are, and then try not to get into debt, and then you're probably doing just fine. And whatever happens with multi-billion-dollar black holes, we really can't control that. It's out of our control. And even as I said, if we had a solution to it, who is going to listen to me in this case, for example? If I had a solution, who's going to listen to me? What can I really do? Now, some people may say, oh, but you need to go out and voice your opinion. Well, I'm enjoying my life just as it is. And I don't really feel that passionate. I have to be honest. And this is just me. Some people may feel very passionate about the fact that there's a multi-billion-dollar black hole. And if you feel passionate about it, you need to go and do some investigation into why that has happened and sort of satisfy your thirst of knowledge for this topic. For me, I really have to be honest, I do not care. There's nothing I can do about it. If the black hole is there, it is there. All I'm going to do is look after my own financial situation, ensure I'm living within my means. That's going to vary for everyone. If you're one of our wealthy subscribers, okay, you perhaps have a greater financial freedom to spend money. You have a greater ability to spend more. So if someone living within their means looks like this, for one of our wealthy subscribers, living within their means may be this. They may have more space to spend. It's different for everyone. You live within your means. Don't get into debt, and try not to essentially get too preoccupied about things that you can't really control. We can't really control this, really, as much as we would like to. All we can do is just look after number one. Look after ourselves. If everybody looks after themselves, lives within their means, whatever that means for you, depends on your income, depends how much you want to spend, whatever. Depends what obligations you have, how many kids do you have, whatever. What job do you work? Whatever living within your means looks like, you live within your means, and then try not to get into debt. If we can avoid getting into debt and living within our means, then guess what? If everybody was able to do that well, and really look after number one, well then, I would make a cagey argument and say, perhaps, if everybody was super responsible with their finances and was paying attention to these things, who knows what might actually end up happening to these multi-billion-dollar black holes? I don't know. Would that make a difference? Key thing here is look after number one. Let's not get too worried. When we hear these things, multi-billion-dollar black hole, I would argue, and it could be argued in general, that when you hear that, it's sort of inflammatory. It could be viewed as something inflammatory because what can happen is people can then look at that and say, well, who's misusing the money? And I'm a very honourable taxpayer, and who's doing this? And this isn't fair. And there's a whole bunch of frustration. There's a whole bunch of frustration. And what happens when you get frustrated? What happens when your attention gets diverted away from what you should be doing in your own life? You are distracted. We don't want to get distracted. Remember, if you were listening to, I can't remember what episode it was, but there was a recent episode where I was talking about the amount of hours that we have to live. I'm 30 years of age. I've probably got less than 200,000 hours left to walk around and breathe on this planet. You have to ask yourself, do I want to be dedicating precious hours of my time to worrying and getting angry about multi-billion-dollar black holes? If you want to dive into that black hole, fine. If that's what you're interested in and that's how you want to spend your time, fine. Get into it and enjoy yourself down in that black hole of whatever information you're going to find. For me, I don't want to spend my time even thinking about those things. And the reason why I don't even want to spend my time thinking about these things is because there's nothing I can do about it. It would be like me getting up or going to bed every night and thinking about how I can change the weather. Yeah, I really want to make it sunny tomorrow. It needs to be sunny tomorrow. I can't control the weather. I can't control it. So why am I going to start dedicating a whole bunch of time and energy to trying to control the weather when I can't do it? If I'm not pissed off about the weather, we then take the same advice that we give to the people who are suffering from mansion tax. You go online, you buy a plane ticket, you go to the airport, sit on the plane, and go to a destination where it is sunny. So if we're that bothered about the weather in this case, we go to somewhere where the weather is better. If you're that annoyed about the multi-billion-dollar black hole, if it's really, really annoying you, and you just can't get it out of your head, and you're so disgusted for whatever reason at the whole thing, get yourself together, get your finances together, work towards going somewhere else. Go somewhere where there aren't multi-billion-dollar black holes. Because if that is a deal breaker for your psychology and you get so bent out of shape over something like that, well then, just like the wealthy people who are suffering from potentially mansion tax, you may need to reconsider where you're going to set up your base. You're allowed to do that. Okay. That's story number 2. Let's squeeze in a third story. Let's see what our Google Chrome browser is going to throw our direction. Okay. Let's see what we have. So this one, again, I'm having to get rid of all of these cookies. We have a lot of cookies tonight on these articles. The last few shows we've had news on the tube, we haven't really had a problem opening the articles, but these are taking a while to open. Okay, now we have it. So this one is called Science Daily. Let's see what it says. In fact, before I get into this, let me go into the chat. Because see, I've got the ignition up and running again. And I'm away off and I've forgotten about the chat. Let's have a look at the chat here. See what's happening. Have I missed anything? So we've got quizzed in the chat. What does he say here? It says, Big Gav has to be a subscriber. Can't get enough of Bandido talks. Loves news on the tube. I agree, quizzed. I think, this is my conspiracy theory. Before we get into this final story, my conspiracy theory is that Gavin Newsom is a secret subscriber to Bandido talks. I agree with quizzed. I think Big Gav, he has to be a subscriber. I think he can't get enough of Bandido talks. And maybe this is the universe is trying to tell us something here, folks. I'm convinced. I think the fact that we then had an article about mansion tax, it's almost as if Gavin Newsom wants the Bandidos' feedback about mansion tax. Maybe it's just too deep a conspiracy theory. I don't know. But anyway, I like the thought of it. I like the thought of the fact that we have some secret subscribers who don't want to reveal who they are, but they're actually getting value out of Bandido talks. Okay. So, if anybody else wants to get active in the chat, please feel free to do so. I'll dock in there and make sure that I'm not missing any comments. I have missed comments on previous evenings, but we're not going to miss any more comments. We're not going to do that. Now, final story. From Science News. Let's rattle through this one. Scientists launch $4.2 million project to map the body's, quote, hidden sixth sense. The subtitle says, a groundbreaking project is mapping how your brain listens to your body's hidden signals to keep you alive. And the summary of the article says, inside your body, an intricate communication network constantly monitors breathing, heart rate, digestion, and immune function. A hidden sixth sense called, oh, this is going to be interesting trying to pronounce this word, interoception. Interoception. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. We gave it a go, though. It was a bit like our first, I don't know if anybody can remember our first News on the Tube article, when I got a whole bunch of Russian words that I had to pronounce, and then we had the article about the tragic young lady who died from, I can't remember, was it Japan? And I had all these difficult words to pronounce. That hasn't happened in a while, but here we go. Leave it to Science Daily to to break my streak of mispronouncing words. Anyway, now Nobel laureate Ardem, it's given me another. Come on, Science Daily, don't do this to me. Nobel laureate Ardem Pataputian. Oh dear, the streak has been broken. We're going to call him the Nobel laureate and leave it at that. Now Nobel laureate and a team of research scientists at Scripps and the Allen Institute have received $14.2 million from the NIH to map this internal sensory system in unprecedented detail. Okay, so $14.2 million for a project to map the body's hidden sixth sense. And from what I can gather, this hidden sixth sense is this idea that essentially there's this big communication network within your body that allows you to synchronize your breathing, your heart rate, your digestion, and your immune function without you actually thinking about it. So what we'll notice is whenever we breathe, whenever our heart beats, when our digestion is up and going, and obviously our immune function, we're not in control of any of these things. These things just happen without us thinking. And in a sense, actually, it's hard to believe when you think of it, because we're so used to just seeing what's on the outside of our bodies. But when you think, deep down inside, underneath your skin, there's so many things happening. And I suppose if we're going to try and pull a lesson from this article, the lesson perhaps is quite simple. The lesson is, folks, your body is a marvelous piece of biological engineering. It is truly remarkable. When you think of how we have gotten to this stage, we used to be just these unicellular organisms. That's it. Really simple, just a single cell. And now we have evolved into this magnificently complex organism with all of these different things, digestion and the heart being able to beat, the circulatory system, the respiratory system. It's just, and then we have the immune function. There are so many things when you think about the human body. It is truly remarkable what we are able to do. And I think maybe the lesson here, as I think down through this, is, again, it's related to something that we talked about, I think it was last week, about this idea of not taking things for granted. I think it was actually about the young lady who died tragically without a known cause of death. Remember the famous, I think it was episode 3, News on the Tube, about the young lady who died. She was a award-winning novelist or writer, and she died very young, 31 years of age or something. And we talked about in that episode 3, I think, that the lesson in that story was we don't want to take things for granted because life can change very quickly. I think here, whenever I read an article like this, and I know $14.2 million going into this project, some people may say that's a waste of money, whatever. I don't even see that as the main part of the story, to be quite honest. When I see something like this, and I just see in writing somebody summarizing and kind of just outlining in general how complex the human body is, it gives me a tremendous appreciation for actually being a living, breathing creature. Because I think we can take it for granted. The fact that we don't actually control our own digestion, the fact that we don't consciously control our own heartbeat, the fact that we don't consciously control our breathing, the fact that we don't consciously control our immune function, these things just happen. And most people go through their entire existence and don't even realize that they're happening. Now, obviously, if you're like Big Pete in episode 2, you remember episode 2 that we did last week, if you've watched it, Big Pete. He had a heart attack. Now, I mean, if you have a heart attack, you will then, of course, realize that your heart does beat. Because when your heart stops beating or there's an obstruction in one of the arteries leading towards your heart, you then realize that you have a heart and it beats. And it's only in moments like that, moments of great peril, of danger, or when something goes wrong with the body. For example, I've got a bit of a pain in my neck and right shoulder. If you want to know why, go over to Rumble after this live stream. We did a live stream last night on Rumble, Ramble on Rumble episode 2. And I talked all about a certain thing that I did on Friday. And it sort of left me with a sore neck and sore shoulder. And this is the thing. Normally I don't have a sore neck and a sore shoulder. That normally isn't the case. Normally I'm functional. I'm pain-free. But now I've got a bit of a sore neck and a sore shoulder. What do you think has happened over the last few days? My appreciation for my body has went up a notch or two. Because normally I'm not in pain. There's nothing quite like pain to instill a bit of appreciation. And I think that's the thing. That's the lesson from this story, I think. When you realise, and I would encourage people to do this, and you don't have to be some high-flying biologist or scientist, but I would just encourage people to do a little bit of reading on your body and just how your body functions. Just do a bit of surface level reading on the biology of a human, how the heart beats, how the circulation system works, how respiration works, how you breathe, how the immune system works, how your muscles work. Just do a little bit of reading, how your liver works. How do you control blood sugar? I think when you have a little bit of knowledge about how your body works, sometimes what that can do, and it mightn't work for everybody, but sometimes when you have a bit of knowledge about the sheer complexity and brilliance of your body, you're less prone, perhaps, to abusing it and taking it for granted. Once you actually realise just the marvel that is the human body. And the only way to find that out is to educate yourself. Go and find some information. There are plenty of books, both in a physical form and online, where you can actually educate yourself. They're written in a way for people who aren't hardcore scientists or biologists. They're written for a way for people who aren't in the field of science to understand. Just educate yourself a little bit on the human body and how it functions. Why am I suggesting that people would do that? Why would that be a good idea? Because it can give you more appreciation for how you function as a living creature. And sometimes, and it won't work for everybody, but sometimes by having a little more appreciation for how your body works, your digestion, all of this stuff that's mentioned in the article, it says here about the essentially how a communication network between that monitors breathing, heart rate, digestion, immune system, all of these things. When I read these things in the article, it literally reminds me. And even I'm a guy who likes my biology and likes my science. But even I just forget how complex and marvellous the body is. And then when you have a little bit of pain, like I have, you then realise, gosh, yeah, there's the body just not functioning at 100%. And sometimes just educating yourself a little bit on the brilliance of the human body, it can be enough to just give you a little more appreciation for what it is that you have. All of the functionality that you have. And it may lead you to making better decisions, maybe with your diet, maybe with your lifestyle in general. Maybe you're sort of considering getting off cigarettes, and maybe just educating yourself about the brilliance of the human body and perhaps the damage that something like cigarettes might do to the human body. It might be enough to at least get you thinking about maybe I should try to reduce this behaviour, or maybe eliminate this behaviour, or maybe I should look after my diet a bit more. Maybe I should think, whenever you do a bit of research on muscles and bone structure, maybe you might look and say, a bit of exercise would actually be really good for me. It might later on in my life prevent me or reduce my risk of developing osteoporosis. Who knows? And maybe it might be the ignition for you to start taking more care of your body and to have more appreciation for what it is that you have right now. That is what I think the lesson is from this article. Anyway, I think that is a wrap, folks. 3 news stories once again. It seems to be we do things in threes. So we got through 3 stories tonight. I think a good spread yet again. Well, it was a little more, we sort of had the governor, Mr. Gavin Newsom. We then had Mervyn, the former Bank of England governor. It was a very governor-heavy show tonight, actually, when I think of it. And then we had a final one on science, and maybe just educating ourselves to have a little more appreciation for our bodies, and maybe that will provide the ignition for us to maybe care better for what it is that we have while we still have it. So, a good spread tonight. Really enjoyed the show. That's our last live stream of the week. Okay, so again, I would encourage you folks, if you enjoyed the show tonight, feel free to like the video. Again, get down into the comments section if any of you folks are watching this after the live stream has been recorded. Let me know what you think of the show. And again, if you really like what we're doing here with Bandido Talks, feel free to become a subscriber. You don't have to be a public subscriber. You can be an anonymous subscriber if you want to be. You can maybe join Gavin and the crew there. Maybe Mervyn, the former Bank of England governor, maybe he's a private subscriber too, I don't know. But maybe you can join Mervyn and Gavin in the private subscriber club. I don't mind, but feel free to subscribe if you enjoy the content that we're producing here on Bandido Talks. I'm going to head over to Rumble. We're going to do our live stream, Ramble on Rumble, 8 p.m. We're always live here, folks. Just to remind you, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we are live here on YouTube from 7 p.m. So that's Friday, Saturday and Sunday, live at 7 p.m. on YouTube. And then after every one of our YouTube lives, we go straight over to Rumble to do our live Ramble on Rumble. That's where I'm going now. If you want to hear a bit more from the Bandido, head over to Rumble. We're going to be starting a live stream over there at 8 p.m. So just in a few minutes here. If you're not heading over to Rumble, enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, folks. Enjoy Halloween. I can't remember what day Halloween is on. What's the official day of Halloween? I can't remember. But enjoy whatever activities you get up to over Halloween. And all being well, I will catch you next Friday here live on YouTube, 7 p.m. Keep an eye out on Tuesday. We'll be either uploading a guest episode or a best bits video on Tuesday. But in terms of our live shows, that's it for the week, folks. I hope to see you next Friday here on YouTube for our Let's Reflect first live stream of the weekend. So that's next Friday, 7 p.m. If you want to join me over on Rumble right now, you can do that as well. Otherwise, I will get chatting to you all next week, folks. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care, and we shall get chatting very soon.